want to welcome you to the Ask Jeff YouTube channel, and here is today's question of the day. Was the cost of Moses' striking the rock just that he could not enter the promised land, or did it also include his death? Now, that's a great question that we kind of have to take the whole picture in for just a moment, because some of you may not be familiar with the totality of the story. Moses is the individual who in Exodus chapter 3, the Lord comes to him, remember, with the bush that was on fire but not being consumed, and the Lord commissions him to go back into Egypt to let his people go. For 400 years, for 10 generations, the Israelites had been in slavery in what we know as Egypt. The Lord delivered them through a series of 10 miraculous plagues, whether it was the water turning to blood or eventually the death of the firstborn, the celebration we know today as Passover. Moses brings the children out of Egypt. They go miraculously across the Red Sea, and then they enter what you and I know as the wilderness. Now, it wasn't originally called the wilderness because they were only 11 days away from the promised land. But what happened? They began to grumble and whine and gripe that they had it better in Egypt. And so the Lord saw fit, according to Deuteronomy chapter 1, verse 39, that those that were not yet of the age to know the difference between good and evil would be allowed to live, but the rest would die out. Well, Moses didn't complain and Moses didn't gripe. In fact, much the opposite. So even though Moses understood the difference between good and evil, he and Joshua were part of that younger generation that were going to be allowed to live. They just had to wait it out about 40 years. Why is this important? Well, per the question, when they began to grumble, the Lord told Moses to take his rod, go to a rock, and strike that rock, and that water would come out to provide nourishment. This is alluded to in 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verses 1 through 4. It says that rock that Moses struck was Christ. This is critical to the question because about 38 years go by. They're wandering in the wilderness. There's manna from heaven. Their clothes aren't wearing out, but yet that generation is dying out. Right before they go into the promised land, guess what happens? There's that last just big gripe session. Oh, we're running out of this. We're running out of that. You gave us water before. Give us water again. So what did the Lord do? The Lord told Moses in Deuteronomy, speak to the rock and it will provide water. Moses didn't do it. He struck the rock the second time like he did the first. Did water come out? Well, yes, but there was a price to be paid. And God told Moses, because of his disobedience, he would not be allowed to enter what we know as the promised land. In fact, today, if you were to go on an archaeological trip over there, you can go to what we know as the River Jordan. You can look eastward into what we call Jordan today, the country of Jordan. And there is an area that we believe that Moses was there upon. We kind of celebrate, memorialize his death there. He did not enter the promised land. He did die in the wilderness. Per the question, was that prophecy just him staying in the wilderness or his death? Really, they're both two in the same. In Deuteronomy chapter 34, it's kind of the last will and testament of Moses. He speaks about his disobedience. He speaks about bearing the punishment of his sin against God. And basically, he wishes the Israelites well as they go into the promised land. It's a story of historical fact, but it's also a story of warning. You know, years ago, God may have told you to do something one way. And today, he may tell you to do it a different way. Now, in our own lives, we have to make sure that neither way is a sinful way or we did not hear from God. And I think that's one of the traps we get into. I commonly call it the Moses trap. That if God did it a certain way 20 years ago, that's the only way that he does it. Well, if that's the case, we got a problem with Moses because within 38 years of each other, one time he says to strike and the other time he says to speak. God is the one who establishes what we might call the rules of engagement. It's just our privilege to follow. That's why Isaiah chapter 55 says his ways are not our ways and his thoughts are not our thoughts. Moses never entered the promised land and he died on the eastern side of what we know as the Jordan River because he listened to the people and he didn't listen to God. Thank you so much for submitting your question. You can submit yours at askjeff.net and maybe tomorrow's question will be yours. Thanks for being a part of today's daily question. Now, we answer a question each and every day. Please feel free to submit a new question at askjeff.net. We may not have gotten to yours today, but we eventually will continue to be a part of this. Subscribe so you don't miss out on a question every day.